Guru Nation, there's layoffs,
There's
right?
chaos.
There's chaos, which, by the way, there's been chaos in the private industry for a year and a half now, maybe 2.
Yeah.
But now government's not safe either. And, clearly this stuff sucks. Like, nobody likes to hear people getting laid off. They want to rename the Department of Disease. They want to rename CDC, I believe somebody was saying, making a joke. Tobacco got hit.
CTP. Yep.
And a lot of the FDA took their hits mainly at the biologics divisions, right?
Yeah, because he's not a fan of biologics and vaccines, is he?
Definitely not a fan of vaccines. I think you can say that.
Yeah.
And I've heard him on long form pods. It's not that he's against them, but he's scrutinizing them for the additives, and he's even scrutinizing the food industry a lot more with the red dyes and the compounds the toxins that may cause estrogen uptake in males, and like there's a lot of things he's looking at. It's not just.
But is he qualified to ask those questions?
Well, I don't know who is. I mean, we gotta elect
doctors,
somebody.
PhDs.
Yeah,
he's neither.
Yeah,
I know.
right.
I know what they teach us in law school. It's not any of these things.
It's none of that stuff. Yeah. Nor is it GCP. Apparently,
no, it's not GCP either.
That. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's alarmist to say he's not. It doesn't have surrounded by MDs and PhDs.
Yeah, you're only as good as the advice you take. I can surround myself with everyone, but if I don't listen to them, it doesn't matter.
But it's not like, so the guy that's running it now, what's his name? I have the article here. I just was reading it. One wondered aloud if it was a cruel April Fool's Day joke. I actually forgot it was April Fool's. I didn't go to the office today. Well, what is your take on this? Like, I'll find the guy who's running the show. They got rid of Francis Collins, I believe, or he stepped down.
Yeah.
And now there's another dude running the show. And then Robert Califf, former FDA commissioner.
Bob Califf. Yeah.
Rob Califf. Now there's, I'm trying to find the guy's name who's running it. So to your point, though, there are people there that are qualified now.
There are people that are undoubtedly
people that may not like them, but they're there.
No. Ignore the like or dislike. I have no issue. Like, to me, that's a different discussion.
Yeah.
If you're qualified to opine and you opine, I'm willing to take your opinion. But to say that we're surrounded by the right people, that's only as good as if you take their advice. If you go, I disagree, and I'd refuse to listen to you despite your expertise, which is what was asserted with the vaccine situation. I think I have an issue with that part. Now, if you go, look, here's
but the other side did the same thing.
I don't care about the other side. Let's ignore what the other side did. Let's talk about here.
Okay.
If we had a situation where if you had someone of equal qualifications who has exactly that type of knowledge going, you know what? We read this evidence differently, and here's the confounding variables that you aren't considering. Totally fair, totally reasonable position to take. But that's not the situation here. From what I gather, and again, I have been looking for the actual resignation letter. And there's references to basically, I tried to engage in a conversation where I said, let's explore this in these other ways. He had an opinion. He just wanted to get that opinion done. I think that's concerning because the truth is, in the end, we are talking about patient lives. And I'm worried that taking a dogmatic view on things, and you and I routinely disagree, but what I respect about our conversations are whether or not we disagree, we respect each other and respect the fact that the conversation may not go the way we plan. We learn from each other. But if one side is not willing to learn, then why am I there?
Yeah, one side. Those sides need to be listening to each other.
Exactly.
Dr. J. Bhattacharya.
Bhattacharya. He's supposed to be very, very well qualified from what I gather.
So that was my answer to your question of who's qualified.
Again, he just started today. It's like saying,
right.
So I don't count him yet.
When you got such a radical shift in philosophy from the top, you're not going to keep the same people at most of the institutions.
So if I came in tomorrow and I said I'm going to change Yuma clinical trials,
Well, there's
I
like
don't care what's going on.
There's 6 people.
Yeah, but let's take even with 6 people. Ignore the 50,000 people, 70,000 people, 6 people.
Yeah.
I come in and now start saying, okay, you either do this or you're fired. How long will Yuma last?
It depends. So were we doing well before you came in, or were we doing bad?
Assume that you are considered to be the premier research site in the country, if not the world.
Okay, but profitable or losing money and no margins?
Premier, whatever that means. And the reason I'm asking that question is because you don't really government agencies.
But this is where it gets nuanced, because now
are they there for profit, or are they for public service?
They're not there for profit, but they are there for using taxpayer money in more efficient ways than.
No, they're not. No. They're there to
public safety,
the public good. Exactly.
But you throw it, so these things get confounded because you throw in now funding research.
Okay? Sure.
And we have stories and documented reports of favoritism being funneled to the orthodoxy versus radical paradigm breakers who may have treatments and things that would benefit society that get closeted up because it's not part of the orthodoxy. So that's not necessarily in the best interest of public health and safety. That's in the interest of something completely different. You created a subculture within that kind of feeds off of inefficiencies.
Let's.
This is why it's nuanced. This is not like
I don't know if it is as nuanced as you're trying to make it out to be.
Sure.
I think generally speaking, I would agree with most things are nuanced, right? Without a doubt, most things are nuanced.
Right.
But coming in wholesale, ripping out the current orthodoxy without understanding the current orthodoxy is what I have a problem with. I don't have an issue with going, we're going to change the FDA. You know what? So what? Change the FDA. We're going to change HHS. So what? Change HHS. We're going to take people who literally have decades of institutional knowledge and go, you're fired because you don't agree with me. Not because you're wrong, but because I have a different opinion and you're fired. That's what I have an issue with.
I think COVID did a lot of negative. COVID put a lot of pressure on these people that have been there for decades, to your point. And when the public saw the response and the fallout from that, they were okay with this.
Were they? Now, what is your basis of saying they're okay with this?
To some extent. They saw that it's more than just the simple math of let's figure out what's going on and the solutions. They saw that there's a lot in between those 2 points that should maybe not be there.
Give me an example of what makes you first think that the public's okay with this.
Well, the public doesn't know much about
this. So then we can't say they're okay with it.
They're not okay with it, but they're okay with a paradigm shift.
What makes you say that? Let's answer that question.
I think there's a lot of things that led up to it, but ultimately it was COVID and the lack of.
No. You're answering what may have caused it. But let's start with the assumption you said that the public is ready for paradigm shift. Here's what we know: the public voted for Trump without a doubt.
Yeah.
I don't care who says anything. The public voted for Trump. Let's be very clear about that.
Maybe they cheated. Maybe they didn't.
No. I'm not, it's a legit victory. None of that. But let's say they voted for Trump.
Sure.
Here's my question: does that mean they voted for who Trump was, or not Kamala? That's my first question. In which case, and the reason it matters is, do I agree with Trump or do I disagree with Kamala? So her agenda of whatever it was not what they were signing up for. But what Trump is, as you just put it, a change in orthodoxy. So are most people somewhere in the middle? And if so, are they totally left, totally right, somewhere in the middle? The way it's being positioned is, me. I think most people would argue it's somewhere in the middle. No one's really signing up for a full blue. No one's really signing up for a full red. People are somewhere in the middle. If that's true, are they signing up for dismantling agencies?
Some are.
That may have been what they got. Absolutely, without a doubt. Some absolutely are.
Some are. Unlike the Yuma clinical trials example,
sure.
We're not tied into the national debt, the increasing national debt.
Sure.
And
Without a doubt.
all these things are fair game to the
Absolutely.
federal government.
So I didn't have a problem with, again, saying that we're going to fire people. Like, that's got to happen, unfortunately, right? That's part of the
You can't
nature of
make
it.
cuts without, people, good people,
Yeah,
many of them,
absolutely.
being
Without a
without
doubt.
work, which theoretically they should be able to pick something back up. Now, there's other forces, AI and globalism, which is making that even harder. So this is probably a horrible time for these people to be let go.
Yeah.
I personally wouldn't have done it this way, just myself.
Right. Right.
But there is an argument for they mean business, and this is what they said they were going to do. Like they are pretty
Here's what you got to give.
consistent with what they said they were going to do, which you do not get from the other side.
Again, you keep comparing to the other side. I don't really care about the other side. We have what we have, and quite bluntly, whether or not I agree with him, I'm still rooting for Trump. Not because I agree with him, but the idea that
Well, you got to root for America. I mean, we live here.
that's exactly what it is. You got to root. It's in my interest to root for America. Like,
Yeah.
But I really think he's shooting himself in the foot with the decisions he's making.
Yeah, I don't even think I think he's pretty hands off on this one and entrusting RFK and
that's
Doge,
my
'cause
issue.
Elon did this with NIH. What was it, like a month ago?
Point? Yeah, and that's my question. At what point are you responsible for what all these people are doing? You can only have plausible deniability for a while.
Yeah, you're responsible from day one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm rooting for Trump, not because I agree with him, disagree with him, but because in the end, it's good for America to do better. There's nothing wrong with that.
So let me ask you, do you think the status quo, if it would have been left alone, was satisfactory?
No. Without a doubt, it was not.
How long was that status quo left in place to operate and continue to grow every year without penalty? Just keep doing it.
But we already conceded the point that the status quo was not okay. So I think the rest of it's sort of irrelevant.
But is the solution to stop doing that at that point, or is it to keep feeding money into what's not working?
There's a third option to
both
move away. It doesn't have to be a drastic stop doing that. It's not a cliff.
So move away.
Yeah. To move towards whatever we think, looking at the departments and going, this doesn't need to be here. Let's eliminate that. Whether or not I agree with. Oh, really?
That's a good one. Trump needs to ban large dogs, starting with the bully breeds. As an owner of American Bulldog, I'm offended here.
I know. I love dogs, and I'm offended here anyways. I don't even have a bully breed. That's kind of ridiculous.
That comment came from your channel, by the way.
So really?
You gotta watch. You gotta do some.
Not a fan. Not a fan.
But the point. So what do you mean move away? What does that look like?
No. So assessing what. Too many victims.
They're saying that.
No, I get it, but
victim mentality.
I'm sorry that's a dog. You can't freaking go after an entire species because of that.
I think he's. Oh yeah, he's actually being serious. This is your subscriber, man. You gotta figure this one out.
I can't control my subscribers.
Don't come to my channel. All right, stay on Darshan's. It's really cool.
That's like upsetting to me. Like I have a dog and I love my dogs.
I love dogs. Okay,
sorry.
I say you don't feed the system that's broken. I personally know.
But do you starve it? It's like saying someone has cancer. Do you chop off the cancer, or do you chop off like half the body because some of it had cancer?
Well, that's kind of the standard of treatment right now is radiate everything, and they're working on stuff. They're working on
no. Let's say I have a tumor right on my hand.
Yes.
What we're saying right now is let's not just chop off the arm. Let's go after the leg. And the second leg, just in case, because we don't know where it is. That's really where we are right now.
Well, they are doing that with like radiation and chemo, but
they're not chopping off legs. I don't know where you're going, but you need to change your doctors.
They're not chopping off, but they're attacking most of the cells in the body. Now they're working.
Staying up here, we're literally chopping off.
Yeah, I get it. I get what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
I personally know people pre-Trump, right? So this was with Biden. This was before him.
Again, to me, it's not about the politics. I never get into the politics because I trust the trust the decision, not the person.
You and I don't get into politics. Maybe it's almost impossible, but the headlines for sure do.
Oh, absolutely.
The sensationalist stuff I'm seeing on LinkedIn for sure.
Absolutely.
And I've never seen this much empathy for private industry employees. Like they've been losing their jobs for 2 years. I have not seen headlines like this.
So I think what it is for me is I grew up in India, and there's something called the non-aligned movement, NEM. And essentially what it came down to is, are you on the side? Are you on the side of? Sorry, I saw that, as you can tell.
This is your subscriber, man. You gotta clean up your channel. Make your channel great again, Darshan. Drain the swamp.
I'm just not.
For those listening on the pod, Darshan is getting trolled by
I
one of
know.
his own subscribers, not a member of Guru Nation. We would not do this, even when we disagree with each other.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I disagree with myself almost every other day.
I don't think we have to. I'm not even sure we're disagreeing right now.
Okay, so I'm saying, do you feed the system or
No,
do you
I'm sorry. I was talking about the non-aligned movement, and in the non-aligned movement, the question was: are you with the USSR? Or are you with the US? That was really always the question.
Yeah.
The response was always, we're not going to judge based on which side is saying it. We're going to judge each issue on its own. So in the same way, that's how I approach things. As far as I can tell, my whole life.
I agree.
So to me, whether or not Trump is in power,
people don't do that.
I agree. I know people don't.
And so it's not fair. But I mean, you're getting like Tesla owners getting like vandalized.
That to me is ridiculous as well. To me, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, but no one's saying they're victim. Like the people who own the Teslas, they're
really?
not. There's no empathy for that Tesla owner. So you picked a side, and now you deserve what you get.
I think that's ridiculous. Well.
That's the sentiment I see, man. On both sides, by the way.
I have a problem with that too.
Well, I drive a Ram pickup.
Well, was it made in the U.S.? Because otherwise you're going to get tariffs.
I have no clue. I think it was. I think I'm safe. Although Ram's owned by Fiat, so maybe not. Hey, maybe the value of my truck went up, man.
Well, I have a BMW, so it's already here. So maybe it's gone up because you don't have to pay tariffs on my car if you want to buy it.
I think you're good for now.
That'd be.
There is a truth in what is happening somewhere.
Yeah.
But you got to get through so much bullshit to get to it. And it's hard to find the noise, like the signal from the noise.
Very good. I agree with you. The question is, what is the noise and what is the signal in this case?
The noise is, and it sounds horrible because it sounds like I would have no empathy, but I do. These are people's jobs and livelihood. There's probably a shitload of Trump voters that got laid off.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's already been, I think, documented.
But again, it goes that you're going down the ideology route, and I go, that's irrelevant.
Right, because it's hard to find.
I think you're seeing the same thing I am there. Yeah.
I think we are too. It's hard to find the signal. The problem is with the status quo, the way things were, I personally know family that are struggling to get an appointment or a refill at the VA. Mm-hmm. I personally know people on disability that every year get their disability benefits cut.
Yeah.
And then they have to go through all these hoops to get them put back.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like things were great before these cuts came through.
But are they going to be worse?
Came through. I don't know if they're going to be worse.
No, they're already saying they're worse.
They're worse for like what, a year, maybe 6 months, 3 months.
Yeah.
The hope is that they get better. The idea is, okay, hopefully it gets better. Hopefully with the increased efficiency, maybe they're going to modernize the way of collecting data and servicing customers or servicing the public.
You're giving a lot of grace.
Yes.
To a situation, and I think giving grace is a good thing. I don't have
the VA is atrocious. There we go. Yeah. But so then we should have just give them a bigger budget next year, or like what do we do?
Or you can fire slowly.
Okay.
You can decide who needs to be fired. Maybe have 2 people do the job of 4 people, but maybe not just go, we're going to get rid of the entire customer service department, which is where we are right now.
But do you think, this is how crazy the media is, do you think that they are already rehiring in certain departments?
You see the problem with that, though? I'm going to fire you and then tell you to come back.
No, not rehiring the same people.
Oh, they are. They are, though.
Okay, well, that too. Maybe they found some people. Maria says you're spot on, Dan. Look, Guru Nation doesn't put service dog. Darshan, if this live stream proved anything, man, your subs, there's something wrong with your sub. Maria, shout out to you. Listen, I'm not I'm not on Team
I now
MAGA.
got to check if Maria's on my. Maria, do you follow me? Because
Maria,
I
please
need.
follow Darshan. He needs some help. Subscribe. I'm not like hardcore Team MAGA by any stretch, right? I've been an independent my whole life. But when something's wrong, we can't just keep assuming things are going to improve by throwing more money at it and then letting
But
the.
those are the two options.
Well, they're saying things like rampant abuse, fraud, and grift. Like these are the words they're using.
Who's the they?
The other side, the side that's in charge now. Doge, Vivek,
So,
Elon.
well, first
Who
of all,
else
I'm
is
not sure I
next?
take Vivek for anything because right now he's not saying anything. Like
Oh
he
yeah,
has
he's running
no
for
actual
governor of
knowledge.
Ohio. Yeah, but he helped implement Doge and many other. He stepped away, but he was one of the early Doge people.
Sure. No, I concede that point. I agree with that point. But my issue is a slightly different one. He doesn't have, to me, I'll take, first of all, I think that Elon or Trump at least have access to real knowledge. Now, the question is, are they qualified to make those decisions? I'd argue that there's definitely concerns about that. The idea that someone's going to come in, it's like me going in there and deciding who to fire in NASA. Like I am not qualified to decide who to fire in NASA.
Right, but should a bureaucrat do that, or should
Well, better than me.
an engineer? No, I would argue you'd be better than a bureaucrat.
No, I would argue no, because and it's not even a bureaucrat. I'm saying let people at NASA decide who should be fired, and tell them you need to fire 20%. You decide how that goes. Instead
But
of saying
you're entrusting the management that's been repeatedly
Yeah.
fucking up.
absolutely,
after
because they
year.
at least know for every part of the fuck up that you're seeing, there's also the stuff that worked, and they know what parts work and what parts don't. We don't. So if I'm suddenly in charge of NASA and I start firing engineers, we have a problem.
Right. So what if the part that work? What if there's enough parts that work
Mhm.
to signal like some good stuff, like some progress, to
What have
cover
you
up?
seen that suggests that?
Well, not from NASA. I don't know anything.
No, I
about
don't
it.
mean NASA. I
But
mean
like from the
FDA.
NIH,
Yeah.
the big win supposedly, because you can point to tons of losses, like the vaccine rollout. Let's just like I would have got canceled 4 years ago. The vaccine response was terrible. The efficacy and safety are negligible at best.
I'm not going to agree with you on that statement, but
I
keep
know
going.
you've got things to consider that it's important for your business, but
No. Ignore me for a second. This is much
yeah,
bigger than me, right?
yeah.
But I think the argument really that things were good, bad. The vaccine was. Would you say
Well, we're
the
pointing to
efficacy was
wins. We're
negligible?
pointing to wins and losses.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Maybe I misunderstood how you're answering the question.
Right.
Please
So
repeat.
those were some of the losses, according to most
That's your
public
position. Okay, fair
opinion.
enough. I'll respect
Most,
your
not
position on
just
that.
mine.
Sure.
Most public opinion. So, come on, man. You think the vaccine rollout was successful, like the COVID?
I mean, I'm not dead, so it helps.
We could. Well, yeah, I'm not dead either. I never took it. I'm not dead.
I
They were
did. And
telling me I
I'm
was
not.
selfish. They told me I was selfish for not taking it 4 years ago. And I thought, why? I got the disease. I got COVID, and my body should have its own immunity now.
I did. First of all, I want to thank Maria for adding me.
Maria, thank you. And I'm not anti-vax by any stretch. We're doing some I actually am applying to get some vaccine studies. Right, the mRNA paradigm. Maybe it's
You
got
are truly a
potential.
businessman.
Listen, mRNA. What they're not looking at T cell vaccines. They're not.
So here's my question: are you okay with mRNA vaccines?
I think it has potential. I don't think they're. I think there's a lot of concerning data out there on them.
So you're not okay with mRNA vaccines? I'm confused where you are.
I think it's worth research.
Okay.
That's about what anybody can say. There's some that say they're not worth researching. I don't think so. I disagree. I don't think it's the only paradigm, and this is where we get to some of the interesting stuff.
Talk to me.
This is where it gets interesting, right? Project Warp Speed came out. Trump put that together. Let's not forget, right?
Great. Okay.
This is my part. He's going for a win. A win's a win. Trump don't give.
I don't care who's as long as they're better. I don't care. But
Trump don't give a fuck. Is my point. The win's
Yeah.
a win. He's very pro-vax. One of the treatments was a T cell immunity supposed to clear the virus. It's from Immune Bio.
Okay.
Dr. Pat Shun, something or another.
Sure.
he was the only one of the 8 companies that are not on the mRNA paradigm.
Sure. Got it.
Now, the higher ups at these institutions were all pushing for the mRNA paradigm. There
Sure.
was a lot of decades of work, a lot
Yeah.
of money at stake.
Yeah.
This was the narrative, this was the dogma, this was the orthodoxy. We got to go with that. Anything
Okay.
else, even if it's promising,
Mm-hmm.
we're not going to roll into this Operation Warp Speed. That's the kind of, even if it means it's in the best interest of the public, right? So this is the kind of dogma that I think is at the root of the problem, because you're not just pushing science, you're pushing one view of science and you're blocking other potential views of science. And the NIH got to control the purse strings for I know a lot of researchers that couldn't get funding, whereas others did, just because they were not part of the orthodoxy. And I don't think that's okay. I think the government should establish a framework for fair trade and competition, and not necessarily control purse strings to private industry. And that's where I think the grift, and for lack of a better word, all that other stuff gets convoluted into, oh, but you're dealing with patient lives and this and that. Yeah, you are dealing with patient lives, but you're dealing more appropriately with orthodoxies and who's going to benefit off of the established orthodoxy that's out there and the dogma that's going on. So this is not anti-vax, pro-vax,
No.
anti-patient, pro-patient.
Sure.
This is about exposing the hidden interests of people that are supposed to be running public safety. That got me canceled 4 years ago. I damn near lost my YouTube channel.
Did it?
And I don't give a fuck about pro-vax, anti-vax. I think that's nonsense.
Right.
But these are labels thrown at anyone who sounds like me or says anything even remotely similar to what I just said, because it goes against the orthodoxy.
So I can respond. Let's start with orthodoxy.
Kelvin Peak. Okay, hold on. Let's pause it. You actually have a decent subscriber now. So you're making it back up. Kelvin.
Brendan just added me, just to be clear.
Okay, Brendan, everybody needs to go connect with our Sean ASAP.
I also love that James thinks that you won. I'm like, really?
James, thank you, man. Give
Just
me
to
my
be
flowers.
clear,
Give me my flowers while I'm still here. Before LinkedIn pulls the plug. It won't
I'm
be
going to
YouTube
vehemently
now.
disagree on what just happened.
Hey, service dogs. See? Hey, man, I'm trying to get to 100K. You can sub to my channel, too.
I think you should sub to his channel, and please comment from there.
So is there anything wrong with what I said?
Where should I start?
Start wherever you want.
Okay. So I think, first of all, you use the word orthodoxy.
Mm-hmm.
And to suggest that if someone believes it, it should be challenged. Sometimes someone believes that the earth is round because it's round. And I recognize it's technically an ellipse, but I forget. The idea is some orthodoxies exist because they're true. Now, one can have a legitimate discussion on what is the appropriate way to do things? Are there better ways to do things? Blah, blah, blah. I think those are fair conversations to have. Having said that, I think your version of events may not be the only version of events. For example, the position you put out is there were two different types. One was a T cell based and one was a mRNA based.
No, the 7 of the 8 were
sure, but there are two different versions is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Technologies.
Yeah.
We're having a straight up vaccine conversation right now. And
well, that's the most recent example. I'm telling you that.
Okay, let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about that.
Ruined it for all the NIH and all this stuff.
But let's go through that for a second.
I even said this back then. They dropped the ball. This is gonna be. I hope patients still want to do our studies.
So let's talk through that for a second. The fact is, what we had then was people dying. What you had then was a situation of we have a limited amount of time in which we've got to place bets. There were two options, like you're saying. If the FDA would have said, or technically any agency, NIH or otherwise, would have said, we think one idea is not better than the other. In that scenario, what you're looking at, what you're facing, is dilution of efforts. So you now have a situation where people are dying, and now you're just hedging your bets, which you would agree is not the way you run a business. In the end, it's about placing your bets and trusting them.
Placing your bets in and in the case of the government, it's not in the interest of a corporation where you
Right.
got to live with the results. It's in the interest of public safety,
Correct.
where
So
everyone's got to live with the results.
exactly
In
right.
Texas, they call it pissing in the water we all drink from.
Right. Exactly right. Is that right in this case? Sure.
They piss in the water.
They piss in the pool too. I don't know what
They
that means.
do.
So
They'll
I'll go with
expose you
that.
too with the blue stuff.
I
Maybe
know,
that's
right?
Doge, that blue stuff that like exposes the people peeing in the pool.
I'd have no problem with Doge exposing people who pee. There's no issue with that. My issue is with we're still working on where we were, which is the government took its bet because there were ramifications, right? If you choose two different mechanisms of actions, now you need to dilute the efforts of the FDA, NIH, and everyone else. And that will cause delays. Which means that the government had to take bets. I don't even know if this is true. I'm just sort of giving you a
No, I
different
know
thought.
you're rationalizing it like an attorney would defend a client, but
I
how do
know.
we? So, whose word do we have to take that they made the right bet in the interest of the public versus in the interest of who's
No, my point is
lurking in those
people took a
institutions?
bet, and now we're all Monday morning quarterbacking it.
Oh, okay. So you're okay. I got you.
So my position is not who's right, who's wrong. My position is people took a bet, it worked out, and now we're saying we could have done it better. And my argument is it worked. Why are we
What do you
arguing
mean?
with success?
What worked?
The vaccine worked. People aren't not as many people are dead.
Sure. Like not all 8 billion people have died.
No, but ignore 8 billion. How many people actually died?
I mean, there was a good amount. Now we're not going to get into how they counted those.
Exactly.
Died
So we
with
agreed
and
that was a
died
big
of.
problem. So we all agreed it was a big problem.
They
But
shut
the
down
question is
work.
how big we don't really know.
They shut down work. They closed schools.
Sure. Sure.
Some states are still closed, I think, or maybe they open now.
I don't think some states are still closed.
I'm exaggerating.
This is how fake news spreads.
They reopened very recently.
Fair channel.
So what's your point, though? Like, you don't think they should have given, like, if you're coming up with Operation Warp Speed, right?
Yeah.
And NIH is running it, and NIH has
worked, right?
invested interest in mRNA. They don't have invested interest in the tRNA. You don't think it's still ethically responsible for them to say, we don't know shit about any of these, really? Let's
Sure.
just put this one in there, too.
But then would you have argued today that they didn't believe in enough they actually had to hedge their bets? I can see people arguing that.
I don't know. And that's where most people are skeptical, because most people are like, well, I don't really think they have my best interest. I think they have their own best interest first.
Who's their own here?
The higher ups at these institutions.
So you think there's a guy up there who's making a bunch of money?
There's committees.
All making a bunch of money. That's
no, Darshan. They're public servants, of course. But let's ignore streams of revenue coming through. Let's just put it that way.
Okay. So the position is
this book will tell you all about it from the 60s, man. Look how Lyndon Johnson did it. Yeah, he used that oil money to push legislation to create government funding programs.
So Brendan, MPH, Masters in Public Health, and immunity of other diseases affected by isolation. Herd immunity is vital. Do we have that now?
I don't know. COVID's just, I mean, I know people still getting COVID, so I don't know. My niece just had it a month ago. Some people get it.
How many people are still getting the vaccine?
I don't think very many.
Flu, it changes.
Yeah, I don't think people are really getting it anymore. I mean, I'm sure there are some, but yeah. Are you? I mean, I'm not getting it.
No, I'm not getting it anymore. I think the point I'm making is the government took bets. They had to. They did. They came up with the result. Now we get to Monday morning quarterback it. CDC did admit that there were serious issues communicating the benefits of vaccination. So there you go. Now, what I do have a problem with, I will be clear.
Follow the money, find the problem.
Or just find the problems and then try to find a money trail. I would argue that this is more the second than the first.
Because everyone knows
that there's a problem.
The higher ups at the public servants are like, angels. They don't get their hands dirty and mess with politics. They would never do that.
No, but outside Nancy Pelosi and who's the other one? The Republican guy who literally are making the laws. These guys aren't like multi-millionaires.
Nancy Pelosi?
No, not outside those people.
Oh, okay. Because she might be a billionaire.
Oh yeah, she's done well.
She's better than Warren Buffett. Poor Charlie's almanac. Poor Nancy's Almanac. We got to read that one. There's a
Look at
distrust.
Helen.
Can we at least agree there was a distrust in the
Oh, that I
process?
agree with. I think that I think I'm not good with the public skepticism that was reduced, and the court has called out. The court
We
did
s-
call out the FDA for that
we're
and NIH for that. My
and
issue
we're
is, but to also argue that there was a flaw in the research itself is not true, because I actually was part of a DIA panel that discussed what the process was,
mhm.
and they actually came out and said, "Oh, you know what? Calvin, I can't stand Nancy Pelosi.
No,
Like
I mean
that's
no one
things
can.
irrelevant to the conversation."
There was
But
sensationalism on both sides. There was the story from a whistleblower that said all vaccine data was fake. I actually made a video saying, no, Pfizer, this is how you do it in research. Pfizer actually did collect the data properly. I almost got canceled for that. YouTube didn't know what I was saying, so they're like, we don't know. Just to be sure, let's cancel.
yeah,
I was
I
actually
think
pro pharma in that video.
to me,
So there's
it's.
sensationalism on both sides.
I have no issue with people having opinions. That's how we learn. People having opinions. It's the actions that I have a problem with. Today we're dealing with actions,
Sure, and the actions are,
firing people.
yeah. What holds more blame for people's
But
skepticism
that's not
and
the
distrust?
question. It's the question is not who holds more blame for skepticism, distrust. The question is, should people
Why?
be fired?
And the question is, why do people have distrust and skepticism?
But those people who have the distrust, there's nothing the Kennedy files came out.
Yeah,
You know, they literally disclosed everything they possibly could,
yeah,
and now the response was, they're hiding things.
yeah.
Some
They're
people
still
just never
hiding things.
exactly. So at some point, you've got to believe that people aren't going to buy the story, and that's where we are.
Right. I mean, it sucks that institutions are getting dismantled. It shouldn't have gotten this way to begin with.
Right.
I think the institutions got way too powerful, in my opinion. I think they should have never gotten this powerful.
What does that mean to you?
I think the government's function should be to keep us safe, which I know
Mhm.
you're going to bring in public health.
Sure,
For
sure.
sure. For sure,
Yep.
you need that.
Yep.
But there, you draw a line between these quasi-governmental institutions where there's billions of dollars floating around and very little accountability for where it's going. And then the government's role is supposed to incentivize private industry to create, to innovate, and it should be a fair, level playing field for all the players there. Like, as long as you're following the rules, you should have a fair playing field. But once you give some institutions power, quasi government institutions power, and purse strings, and then public private partnerships and funding, you get dogma and you get everyone else, and you don't get funding if you're not part of us.
I don't know if I believe that that's what happened.
That's the way I see it. That's
No,
the
no,
way
and I
many see
respect,
it.
and I totally respect that. That's how you see it, and that's why I love having these conversations with you, because I can disagree and still
Yeah, we
we
still
can.
respect. Look,
That's how.
my heart goes out to all these people get laid off. I mean, some
Yeah.
of them probably deserve it, but like there's
Sure.
reports of some not even going to work. Like,
Sure.
okay, but there's most likely the majority were decent workers just wanting to get paid, just wanting a salary, and they're victims. They're victims of this. But
I don't
so
know
have
who this
been
LinkedIn user is. Do you want to?
LinkedIn user. Identify yourself. What's going on? Appeal to authority. This is a lot to read.
I know,
Hold
right?
on. COVID research worked well. I was part of the J&J trials as the coordinator. Then
So I
this,
agree with what they're saying.
yeah,
You should be able to consult the physicians. You should be able to question it. That's all good. But
mhm.
in the end, that skepticism resulted in people saying the skepticism itself is right, and now I'm right. Like, no, that's too far.
Yeah, or the gigantic anti-vax media apparatus constantly pushing
There you go.
anti-vax there. The media was not pushing the anti-vax.
Media, well,
Social media
mainstream media was, I mean, Fox was.
and
Fox
Twitter
was
and
pushing
Facebook.
ivermectin. I'm a
Yeah.
pharmacist. I can tell you if ivermectin does nothing for you here.
Well, there's some, so the whole thing of clearing the virus or letting it linger in the stomach, there's something there. Should be researched. Pat
Dude,
Shum
I
said
can say anything. I can say
immunity. Cancer is an immunity issue.
I can say ivermectin cures AIDS. Actually, that's not a bad. That's a bad example. I can say ivermectin cures cancer.
Right.
and then say we should research that. Well, yeah, I can research anything I want. Question is there a good theory to support it? There's no theory to support that.
Right.
In the same way, there's just so many comments. We've really touched the topic, but I do need
Yeah,
to get going.
people, listen, man. This is why these conversations are important.
Yeah,
COVID did a disservice to my research clinic. Patients
Did it?
are way more skeptical today than they were pre-COVID.
Really?
Yeah.
How was your last year?
Patients
No,
always
let me ask the
hated big
question
pharma.
differently. How
Yeah.
was last year financially? I don't need the
Last year
numbers.
was
I just
great.
mean
It was
exactly. So it can't be that bad
great. It's harder to get them interested.
because you're
It's
trying
harder.
to get more people.
No.
It was a good year, you said,
One for one, the conversations are harder.
but you're having more of them.
Sure, we're
And it's
gotten
been more
better at it.
profitable.
We've gotten better at it. That's besides the point. We could have done even better. I think they screwed it up. They dropped the ball. They shouldn't have told people
here's
it's
what
safe
I-
and effective when it
Here's
wasn't.
what I agree with you. I think that as whoever LinkedIn user has said,
I think that's Ethan Bond. Shout out to Ethan Bond. Select IQ. Because this guy said, Ethan, what a leading question. So Christian Fitzpatrick, what up, man? But the why still remains. What is the cause of the termination?
I agree. I agree with that statement. I'm totally cool with the reallocation of funds. I also think the terminations themselves are okay as well. But I'm saying why the people, it just feels indiscriminate.
Yeah, I think it is. I think they would say it is too.
I think that's the problem.
But it's not permanently this way. If it remains permanently where there's not adequate workforce at the government, we can have this conversation again.
But that's not what I mean.
A way. I think they're going to find a way to get it okay. It's not going to be right now. It's not going to be overnight.
I think it's like changing. One of the I forget which movie it was, but someone said moving the federal government is a big ship with a small rudder. Changes are incremental.
They should be.
Things will eventually go back to normal.
They should.
Here's the problem: you come in there and just start chopping at it, and you don't know what you're chopping or why. You could be literally destroying your ship and you don't even know it, and that's what we have right now.
Yeah.
And yes, eventually maybe things will be better.
That's a potential danger.
And I think we're agreeing on that part of it, and that's all we can agree to. Just to be clear, is Ethan Bond the guy who was
Ethan's very passionate about this. Shout out to Select IQ. I think there's a prevailing belief that people can be brought back after the organizations are shrunk if there are needs for those personnel. But it seems like they're basically going with the chemotherapy approach, essentially going in and nuking the tissue instead of using a more precision approach to fix the cancerous waste. I agree. I think there's no one that would disagree with this. I think you can't do that. There's no way to do it, so they're nuking it first, and then there
is a way to do that. Like I just told you, simply say, "I want you to eliminate 20% of your workforce. I don't really care how you do it, but that's what I want you to do." Fine.
And then if that's still not good, another 20, and if it's still not good, another 20.
Correct. Yeah. That's the conversation. Instead of going, I who's completely unqualified will tell you.
That's fair. That's fair. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I wouldn't have done it that way either.
Right.
I think part of it is a function of trying to send a message. We're serious about this. Maybe that's, if you were to play devil's advocate, what are the first 3 good things that could come out of this? They will force them to become more efficient, so do more with less. I'm getting anecdotal evidence already from the NIH that things are moving quicker because people are, if you've been in some place for a decade and you get away with whatever you want, whatever, I'm gonna click some buttons just so this AI thinks I'm working. And now you're like, shit, all these people got fired. You think I'm gonna like work a little harder? Of course.
No, actually, I don't think so. And I'll tell you why.
Okay, then you're gonna resign and go work somewhere else.
No, ignore that. Because the fact is, I don't know why those other people got fired.
So are you gonna question it, or are you gonna try to keep your job?
I'm gonna just, because there's a study out there where you had these mice, and at first you would sort of shock them, and they if they press the button, you stop shocking them. So to the point, what they knew is all they have to do is hit the button, and you the shocks will stop. Then it became a random situation. You've got to hit the button a couple of times before the shocks stop, and eventually the shocks just didn't stop, and the mice just gave up. What you have right now is a situation where the shocks aren't stopping, and you have people being fired not because of something they did or didn't do, but because someone just randomly decided that they should be fired. It doesn't make me work harder. In fact, I think to what
I don't
Minton
run my
User is saying,
I don't run my businesses that way either. But I'm
correct,
playing
correct,
devil's
correct.
advocate.
Of course, and I think that that's okay to do, right? But I think we're also those people who kind of come in and go, "Does this make sense?" And I
Right.
can't see the logic to this.
And you don't want to run an organization based out of
Correct.
fear.
Now, to be fair, and I'm going to be fair, and I'm not even sure I like what I'm saying, but I'm going to say it anyways. And I think that you've got to play it all sides, right? You got to play all sides of this. Musk did that. He fired 80% of his staff at Twitter, and Twitter still functions. Now, you may not like it, all that good stuff, but Twitter still functions. The operating costs went down. I would argue that that's true, but Musk actually knows how to run a technology company. He's run technology companies. He was part of PayPal. If someone said, Trump, Musk, you're in charge of running health IT in the federal government, I'd give him a lot more leeway than where we are today. I think that's my issue with it.
Okay.
Or Bhattacharya. I would argue if Bhattacharya decided that he want to fire a bunch of people, I'd give him a lot more leeway. But Trump doing Bhattacharya's work makes no sense. I do need to call it because I do need to walk my dog.
Yeah. Ethan says, I could get to some of these comments, but solo. But yeah, imagine how much people who took the buyout and received the money for 8 months will be paid when they offer to return after restaffing. And the Caesar says, Ethan, had they been that competent, wouldn't that imply they would have already been out? I mean, yeah, there's a reason there's this stigma. Not everyone at government organizations, but they move very slow. They're inefficient, and I think most people are okay with that. That's the government, right? Like you said, a big boat, small rudder, whatever. I think where people are not okay with when there's discussions of maybe not direct proof, but implications of fraud and abuse of that power. And I think that's the line that's been drawn in the sand. Like, hey, we're okay with the inefficiency. That's another story. But when there's fraud and abuse,
but then go after the fraud or abuse. Don't just assert it's there everywhere.
But at that point, people are so fed up. They're like, "Fuck it, just go after everything." How much worse can it get?
Quite a lot worse.
We're gonna find out. I'm not saying I agree with that part. That's just the sentiment that there's people are out there, and a lot of people have that sentiment.
We've got a lot of people arguing with
the comments with each other, man. Everybody go subscribe to each other, and give everyone a heart emoji, even if you disagree.
Exactly.
I'm refreshing Darshan's page here by the minute, and he's losing followers at a rate of 12 a minute.
So I probably am losing followers at a rate of 12 a minute.
I'm losing more.
I don't even blame them.
Listen, man, where else can you find these talks?
See, that's it. This is why we come here.
Right.
Whether it's Darshan Talks, whether it's Fraud Pod, or whether it's the Guru, you get more than you bargained for.
And if you distill our beliefs to like their first principles, you and I are not that far off.
Probably not.
When you talk about governments and agencies and quasi organizations and NGO, all that stuff, it's hard to distill to first principles because there's so much. What do you lawyers like to say? Commingling? I've been educated on that many times.
Sure. Complexity.
There you go. Well, things are about to get more complex, I think. To play devil's advocate, everyone's saying this might be the end of society as we know it. The first three good things that come to mind. What if we ushers in a golden age of innovation in biotech? What Alzheimer's cure have we had in like 3 decades of doing Alzheimer's?
We've had a lot of other cures though. There's
GLPs. GLPs came out. Yeah, they takes credit for that.
Oh, yeah. I think we're doing okay.
It could be a lot better.
Well, see, that's the thing. I don't care how good you do. You could be a lot better. Well, how do you win that argument?
I guess we have to find an acceptable equilibrium, which people say that's not the case.
Can you get there?
They're going to try.
For sure.
Listen, guys, like, subscribe, comment, share. Darshan clearly needs a better quality of follower. These dog people were insane.
Channel. I think
this guy, I've never met someone anti-dog. Dog culture blames victims.
Oh, God.
I don't know. Service dogs are useless. This is your follower, man. Shame. It is in his
Game of Thrones.
In his defense, and to throw a little grift on this topic, it's very easy to get a service animal license.
That's fair.
is needed. You're wrong. I disagree. All right, guys. Bye bye. Bye bye. Please don't unfollow.